How is the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood infiltrating and manipulating the free world to promote anti-Israel, anti-Semitic tropes? Well, two men from the United Arab Emirates, Amjad Taha and Obaid Alzaabi, are courageously speaking out against this extremism. Amjad, you recently called out the BBC and CNN for their reporting on the Syrian massacre. Why?
Because there is no report whatsoever. There is a genocide happening inside Syria, regardless of who is on the other side. But there are innocent civilians or have been killed. Christians are in danger. Their life are in danger. Alawis are in danger. Their life. All the minorities are suffering. And we're speaking about the fact that at one point the Christians, there were like 2 million Christians living in Syria. Right now, only 700,000 people of Christianity left in Syria and are forcibly displaced or being tortured in the street. Alawis, there were 3 million. Right now, there are only 2 million. 1 million has left. We're speaking about the Druze this year. About 100,000 of them left Syria. Why? It's because the Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafi jihadis, global jihadis, gathered together and right now are running the Islamic regime in Syria and running this very strong dictatorship inside Syria where the minorities have no voice whatsoever. And when the CNN and the BBC and others they observe this and they give it no voice whatsoever, and they are busy with some kind of a talk about a person has been arrested for supporting Hamas, and they are on his side of freedom of speech. I don't know. Probably if you give them Bin Laden at this stage, they also put him on their TV in the name of freedom of speech.
So let's talk about that. How, in your opinion, and I know this is an open-ended question, is the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamophobia, how are those things manipulating, in your mind, the free world in the West?
So the Muslim Brotherhood is nearly 100 years old, and they have a very clear expansionist, pan-Islamist doctrine. And they know that they will face challenges in the Middle East. So they've, over the last 50, 60 years, established networks in Europe and the United States that allow them to finance and also lobby for their cause and their interests in the Middle East.
So the question, I think, for a lot of folks is, how do we identify that which is being advanced in the United States? I mean, how do we recognize when we're being manipulated?
So it's very simple. There are some clearly anti-American sentiments that go against the American values, such as anti-Semitism, homophobia, the dislike and hatred towards the United States of America as an institution, the restriction of rights on women, and they are actively campaigning for these kind of ideas, but they are masking their activities behind a pro-Middle East, pro-Palestine statement. But honestly, they have a bigger structure that they don't always show in those events.
If there is anyone that harmed the Palestinian cause or the Muslim Brotherhood by supporting the radical terrorists all the way in Hamas, which carried on the genocide, Hamas is the armed forces of the Muslim Brotherhood, and they were the reason why many of the Christians in Gaza departed Gaza. Many of the Jews, there is no one Jew can live in the future in Gaza or have been there when Hamas took the Muslim Brotherhood. They took the leadership. They are very dangerous. What we're having right now, the current moment, is we are having hostages all the way in Gaza, and those hostages are from the Israeli background or various ethnicities that Hamas has been taken, but also all the way in Columbia's university, you have students who are the hostages of the Hamas propaganda all the way there, and they've been the spokesperson for Hamas in Europe, justifying their crime and standing against the babies and the women who were kidnapped by Hamas.
Well, that's another thing that you recently called out, which is the potential deportation of Columbia grad student Mahmoud Khalil. I know you have very passionate views of this thing. So what are your thoughts?
My thoughts that I pray for the deportation of every criminal and make sure that every criminal should be in the prison or in the hospital, the least I can say. But what we should avoid putting them on the streets where your babies and your woman will be in danger. What we see here when it comes to the fella that you spoke about, that he lived at one point or another in Hezbollah areas, trained probably more likely, and then moved all the way to the United States of America, where what his main mission is not to educate people or knowledge or not, but is to make all those students be deprived from their education and studies, and instead of caring about their education, their books and exams, what they care about chanting a genocidal calls, and also supporting the kidnappers of the babies all the way to the Middle East, which nothing they can connect to or know about.
Okay, so I think a question that folks have is, especially in the West, the Muslim Brotherhood is such an abstract concept. Like, what is that? People always hear like, oh, well, Hamas is the military wing of the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated the Ivy League campuses. But like, what is the Muslim Brotherhood? What should Americans know about it?
The first thing to know is that the Muslim Brotherhood is banned in Egypt, in the United Arab Emirates, in Saudi Arabia, in Russia. Any country which has a substantial Muslim population has banned it because it is a subversive group. It's like a secret society that takes years to establish membership in, requires a deep loyalty in order to be a member. They have been existing since the 1920s, and they are a reaction to Western success and dominance in the region. And they fundamentally want to destroy the countries and institutions in the Middle East and replace them with a pan-Islamic government. And that's their stated and very public belief. That's why in the Middle East, most Middle Eastern countries will not tolerate them.
They use your fund, they use your money to support the terrorists all the way in the Middle East. And what we're speaking about here, for example, the charity organization registered here in US and also in Britain is called Islamic Relief. Islamic Relief is banned all the way in various Muslim countries, including UAE and Saudi Arabia. You can't be more Muslim than the person that lives in Mecca. You cannot, and you will not be. But the person who lives in Mecca has banned Islamic Relief, but the person that lives all the way in New York has not. In fact, is allowing this charity company to take the funds and the money from your pockets, from the Muslim community, and send it all the way to Hamas and other terrorist organization in Libya, in Sudan, the Muslim Brotherhood-led army in Sudan, so they can kill people and make sure all the minorities do not have voice, including the Christians. If you look at the population of the Christians in Syria, how it decreased in Sudan, how it literally, there was a genocide carried on. But guess what? From your pockets, because you allow these companies to run through a charity and send those money to keep people all the way in the Middle East and in Africa.
Well, my brothers, this is very insightful, very revealing. But my last question is, you guys are, in your mid-30s, you're two, cool guys. Why are you doing this? I mean, this requires such bravery and courage to speak out against a pretty powerful entity. So why are you guys doing this?
So it's very simple. We keep getting this request and this question asked: is where are the moderate Muslims? Where are the reasonable Muslims? And Dubai is a very popular place. We try to send our messages as widely as we can that we can coexist together. There have been times, many times in the history of Islam, where people did coexist and thrive together as a multi-faith, multi-group society. So we want to just put the message out there that this type of radical Islamic thinking that has been prevalent in America's streets and campuses is not the universal version of Islam.
And together we stand and together we thrive. The fact that in UAE you have 200 nations from various backgrounds living side by side next to each other. The fact that we have a synagogue right next to a church, right next to a mosque, thriving, and 10 miles away from that also the Hindu temple and so on. They're all living side by side with each other. But an Orthodox Jew can put his kippah and go around in Dubai without being insulted or facing anti-Semitism, but he cannot do that in Columbia's university, for example, or New York University. When that happens, you should question, where is this beautiful, amazing Western civilization? What happened to it, and why are you allowing these extremists to destroy it? You have now more extremists in United States of America than you have in the Middle East. Unfortunately, that is the case. But here they're called activists. In Middle East, they're called terrorists.
Wow. That is a powerful statement. My two friends, Shukran, thank you so much for this information. And I'm going to leave you with the best word in any language in the entire planet, which is Habibi. My two brothers, thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.